Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining my 2024 AIGA Design Conference talk. Design is Connection Made Manifest. And I am coming to you from downtown Chicago. So if you hear the train going by in the background, well, that's all part of the fun. And if I may, just the briefest of introductions. My name is Justin Dauer. I am the founder of a design and marketing consultancy in Chicago and Raleigh called Anomaly by Design. I am a lifelong Chicagoan, so you'll probably hear the Chicago accent and a few words here and there if you haven't already. I've written a few books on design and culture and connection that I will shamelessly self-promote at the end of this talk. And fun factoid, I love to collect Japanese selvage denim, of which I am wearing right now by no small coincidence. And I like to start with something very near and dear to me, and that is the cup of coffee. And the cup of coffee's purpose evolves for me throughout the course of a given day. In the morning, the cup of coffee is clarity. It is focus to kind of propel me through that eye-opening morning awakening experience. Around midday, the cup of coffee is focus. The cup of coffee is slowing down. The cup of coffee is pausing with intent amidst, surprise meetings and various other activities that come up through the course of a given day. And at night, the cup of coffee is kind of a combination of both. It is getting those eyes open once again and also helping me slow down and pause with intent. I'm somebody who often has many side projects in design or various forms of creativity. And my best friend, the cup of coffee, is usually at my side throughout those activities. And the cup of coffee was also very important to my grandfather. And my grandma and grandfather didn't have the best relationship. They lived on different floors of their house in the south side of Chicago. My grandfather had his little place down in the basement, but when he would come upstairs in the morning, my grandmother always had his cup of coffee and the Chicago Sun-Times newspaper on the table. And he was a very busy guy. He was in construction for years, and he always had side projects, or he was fixing someone's steps of their house, repouring concrete in downtown Chicago. But in the morning, he would just stop and slow down and pause with intent and drink that cup of coffee and read his newspaper and not do anything else. And I remember when I was sleeping over there as a kid, and obviously, I wasn't too into coffee at that point, but just, that process, I didn't quite grasp what was going on, but just, the focus and how that cup of coffee helped him slow down. And, the rest of the world kind of didn't exist for a few moments where that was savored. I cherish that. And that's a memory I hold near and dear. That's something I cherish to today, because slowing down and pausing with intent is a value. And slowing down and pausing with intent over a cup of coffee is, in fact, cultural. In Sweden, there is something called fika. And a fika is essentially the act of stopping in the middle of the day, meeting up with a friend or a coworker and not working, and going off site and having a cup of coffee or a pastry or a slice of cake. And I was a design director for a Swedish agency some years ago. And the first time I went to Sweden and seeing this happen, as I was walking through some part of downtown Stockholm, it absolutely melted my brain as an American, seeing folks of varying ages just enjoying time with a friend in the middle of the day. And fika is so important to some Swedish employees that they make sure it's contractual, that they are able to take that and utilize that. And there's a magazine called Drift, which covers coffee culture globally. That's a tongue twister. Fika, quote, "In our fast-paced world, where we are constantly on deadline or planning our schedules around meetings and events, we crave opportunities to slow down. Swedes actually embrace those opportunities. And values are essentially anything you deem important to yourself personally, as it aligns to your relationships, both professionally and the way we create and the way we work." And what if we were able to align our values to the way we work, helping us drive connection to our work and to those who we create with, and to those who will ultimately engage with what we are creating. You see, values aligned means connection aligned. And you're going to hear me say connection quite a bit in this talk. But before we can begin to align our values to the way we work, we have to first be able to identify them. And we can kind of take a look at some examples that I prepared to take a look at where values might come into play along the way. For example, the act of helping people, learning from your mistakes, utilizing your gifts, giving back. Have you ever slowed down to help someone with directions rather than pass them by? Why did you feel the need to help? Perhaps it's because you've been that person before, and you know how hard it can be to put yourself out there in a time of duress and ask for help. Putting yourself in the shoes of someone else to understand how they feel is all about empathy. We all make mistakes. To err is human, as Alexander Pope famously wrote. But there are effectively two ways to respond to an error. Either we learn from the mistake and we grow and evolve, or we let the opportunity pass by and we are doomed to cyclically repeat the mistake moving forward. You have a focus on evolution and pushing yourself to evolve in your craft. This is all about growth. Sometimes a straightforward task or a chore or a project feels good to take care of, right? We have a lot on our plate and checking things off a list feels good. Other times, pushing yourself satiates something deeper. Running a marathon, putting together a complex puzzle, assembling some IKEA furniture. You appreciate leveraging your gifts and pushing yourself to employ them. This is all about challenge. And lastly, giving back feels good. The oxytocin boost we get from donating our time to causes that are important to us is no small coincidence. You make it a habit of looking beyond yourself to better the world and everyone else's conditions. This is all about making a difference. Before we can align our values to our work, we first need to be able to prioritize them, because we can't assume the environment in which we're going to create is going to tick all of our boxes equally, if you will. Sometimes some of our values will be more aligned than others, and we have to understand what we can do with or do without or do with in a diminished capacity. To that end, consider a forced ranking exercise that we've probably all been a part of at some point during our careers. And this is my handwriting from a forced ranking exercise I did with some clients, so pardon the lack of clarity on the words. Force ranking, essentially, for those who have not participated in exercise, has us put on a board things that are important to a project or a client or a given engagement, and have us assign a ranking to them, because this helps us distill down what are the most important things for a release or to phase in or for a minimum viable product, if you will. And force ranking is challenging. It's designed to be challenging, because if you asked everyone in the room to rank what these things are in a priority capacity or in a hierarchical capacity, by and large, they would say everything is equally important. So what we do is at one end of the line, you have to put something that is least important with a dot. At the far right of the line, you have to mark something that is most important with a dot. And something has to be the most important and something has to be the least important. And like I said, it's challenging work. And as the moderator or coordinator in a room, we have some tough conversations with folks, because you ask somebody, why did you choose this? And why did you choose that? And people kind of work through that. So in a group setting, it's challenging, but I would encourage you to do that personally in an individual setting, because when you have your values prioritized, it can help you in many different ways. For example, informing your interview questions. And an interview should always be a dialogue rather than a monologue. You are able to then come to the table with questions that you know are going to align to what is most important to you. What can be, like I said, what has to be on the list in this role versus what can potentially be engaged with in diminished capacity or potentially not at all. And an objective engagement gut check. So as you're actually at your place of employment, understanding what is most important to me. Is this aligned consistently? Has the organization changed? Are they forcing me to come back to the office because they have a high rent rather than support my priorities, my personal life at home? If I have kids to pick up or take care of, are they putting themselves over their supposed "people first" slogan on the cafeteria wall? And lastly, of course, aligning what is most important to you. As I said, values are intrinsic and imperative to both our personal and professional spheres of existence. So, is the organization operating in ethical unison with what is most important to you in a value capacity? And as we take our values, once they are prioritized, we have to align them to a potential culture or engagement we might engage with. And a lot of organizations wear their burnout culture on their sleeve. For example, as you're looking at a potential best fit role, do you need to have comfort and ambiguity? Are you a self starter? These are effectively marketing speak versions of real estate, where you might have a cozy space or a fixer upper with great potential. And this is just to say, be laser focused and crystal clear on what is most important to you in a values and fulfillment capacity as you're looking at a job description online, because those things are written with intent, and the language and verbiage is not chosen ad hoc or without purpose. Is the salary even available, and the salary range even posted? So there are many different ways to take a look at a job post and understand, is this something I would want to invest my time and the quality of my work and my evolution with? And pivoting from there, I want to talk about culture fit. And culture fit is a swear word as it pertains from the organization outward. And that is because largely when someone says culture fit from an organization reaching out, it is used to perpetuate bias or enforce discrimination. On the inverse, from employee to potential organization, culture fit is absolutely a valid concept. Do I want to sacrifice work-life balance for the sake of getting ahead in my career at this organization that might not view me as a person so much as a resource or a name on an Excel spreadsheet? Do I want to have to sleep there overnight to get something out the door? Those are things we have to be crystal clear on as we're looking for a new potential organization. What if we were able to craft and create and hang our hats in an environment that aligned to our values and supported our evolution and respected us as unique individuals with unique voices and perspective? And we think about a first day, when you first have signed with this organization and you're walking through the door. And most organizations welcome you on a Monday. And that is by intent, again, because there are 5 days spanning before you. And that could be 5 days to read the HR manual, or to get to join some training sessions, or hopefully not, but get thrown in right into a project. And I've had that happen before, where I've joined an organization and I started doing project work 5 minutes after walking in the door with little to no context. These are all tells. These are the organization and actions over words actually showing what their values are. I prefer to welcome employees when I've led organizations in a design capacity on a Friday, to generate a new energy, a different kind of energy, one that isn't predicated and relying upon 5 days spanning before me. And I like to call that Friday the new day one. Now let's consider why we might use a persona in a given engagement or piece of work. Personas are effectively created based on user interviews and conversations and dialogues and market analysis to give a soul to a journey map, a given journey along the way, to help us better understand those we are creating for, rather than operating in a silo or imposing AI-generated considerations. And we can give a soul to the process of hiring by breaking that process out into 4 different distinct ways. Let's start with acclimation. And I'm sure it's happened to many of us along the way, where we've walked in the door, metaphorically or literally, if we're working remotely, on our first day, and no one's been there to greet us. and there are folks, gathered by the coffee machine talking about their weekends or what they've watched or with catching up on their programs or something they've read or music they've listened to, and people having different dialogues or hanging their coats up, and no one is there to kind of sire us into this new environment. And there's a huge disconnect between signing on the dotted line to what we're experiencing now. So rather than let that happen, actions over words, values and action, my butt is out of my seat, again, metaphorically or literally, and I am there to greet them. And I am there to show them around and show them where the coffee machine is and show them where, different spots and nooks around the office where they can work or where the mother's room is, or just getting accustomed to the environment and greeting folks compassionately and empathetically. Conversation. And, it's kind of a no-brainer on a first day to take a new teammate out to lunch, but it's not coming up on noon and we're saying, oh, is there someplace to go to eat? Did anyone, find something? Oh, everything's probably booked now. No, I have reservations already made. I know where we're going. Everything is indicative of in actions over words, again, to show that I have taken the time to respect this employee, and I'm taking the time to have a valuable conversation where we can go to a place where we're not going to be drowned out by copious white noise. We can actually talk and we can actually hear one another and connect. Inspiration, I'll come back to in a second, but reflection is where the day should, this first day should ultimately end. And that's not to say after we've done the inspiration portion, which I'll come back to, it's like, okay, time to go back to the office and work. No, we usually call the day early because I want this person to be able to reflect upon what is hopefully a first day that is unlike any they've had before, and kind of think about that as they come back into Monday and we actually do begin to talk shop. But inspiration is what I want to come back to, and that is something very near and dear to me, because inspiration, despite what you may have read, is not a swear word in design. Inspiration is to be cherished. Inspiration is to be cultivated. Wonder is to be cherished and cultivated. Because despite what somebody has had in their portfolio, and obviously portfolio reviews and discussing a body of work is an imperative step, because you want to understand what were the trials and tribulations. How did one contribute to a given body of work? Where do they feel like they had a victory for the user versus something that might have been compromised at the release level? That's all valuable to talk to and discuss, but I want to go deeper than this during this inspiration point of the first day of an employee. So after we've had lunch and we're at a cafe, there's always a question I would ask, and that is, take me someplace in the city that inspires you. And when I've asked that, I've gotten, deer in headlights looks at such a bizarre question. I've gotten immediate responses. And sometimes, if someone can't think of something, I'll have something kind of teed up. But more often than not, they do take me someplace in the city. For example, this graffiti that was on the side of an elevated train platform in the west side of Chicago, or this view of the skyline from the south of Chicago near the Hyde Park area. And there's the beautiful Lake Michigan. Or Dearborn Park, this view through the trees with the lovely grass in the background. Or ultimately the Field Museum. And again, we're not just going to these spots and I say, oh, this is a great view of Chicago. Okay, let's go back to work. It's about going deeper and gaining insight into the spatial considerations that have informed why someone has gotten into design, what their inspirations are and the way they create, why they do what they do. So for example, this graffiti on the elevated train platform, this employee had this early morning drive with their partner where they would drive them to their place of employment before they would ultimately come into work, and they would notice out of the side window, the passenger window, this specific piece of graffiti on the side of the train platform, which was quite far away when I noticed when we went there. To me, this ultimately yields observation, and this person was a researcher. Empathy. This individual took me to the south point of the city because this is where they went to consider a career and life shift. and they were in banking at the time, and they knew they wanted to help people, and they really appreciated leveraging their values to help people, but banking was not quite the right fit for the environment. So they came there to consider, in a moment of quiet and solitude, a career and life shift. They had children. This was an important decision to consider. So they shifted from banking over to UX, and they, made a complete career shift, and they got into UX and design to better leverage empathy towards helping people in a creative and product fashion. Detail, this specific view through the trees. This individual noted how the leaves would change as the different branches on the left and the right, in almost a wishbone shape, framed out this specific view. How did the leaves look in the fall versus the spring versus the winter versus summer? And lastly, research. This individual took me to the Field Museum because their family would take them there when they were younger. And they used to marvel over archaeology and the process of uncovering things, and the fastidiousness of discovery. So as you're looking for a best fit environment, that cultural fit from you to the organization, you should ask yourself, does the story they put outwardly match what they tell everyone else? Does the signage painted on the cafeteria wall translate in actions over words? And that's a new day one. That's one day, but being able to carry inspiration through on every day is something that is also very important to me. And both with clients and those on my team, I cherish that. And I want to make sure this is something that can happen week over week. So in a pause with intent capacity, I use something called Creative Inspiration Wednesday. And it kind of manifests like this. Creative Inspiration Wednesday is something that happens at 9:30 week over week, and it serves to humanize our clients or team members because, surprise, clients are human too. And sometimes they come into a meeting and they have something going on in their personal lives, or they've just come out of a meeting in the business capacity and they feel a little browbeaten. And I want to understand what fuels their thinking as well. And I want to understand them as a person beyond just an email address. So humanizing our clients and team members is essential. Consistently recharging our creative energy. And the Creative Inspiration Wednesday is great as an individual meeting, but it also helps the quality of our work stay consistent and stay strong because our well of inspiration is omnipresent. And lastly, stimulate alternative thinking and solutions. And yes, we're in a very transactional world and a very capitalistic world, but creating cookie cutter solutions over and over and over is not the most effective means of connecting with someone or creating an experience. So being able to look beyond our screens, beyond our viewports, and be influenced by and inspired by the physical world and the way negative space is framed out by buildings, or the way you see someone helping someone else out on the street in an empathetic and compassionate way. That transcends anything that Googling top web design trends 2024 could ever yield. And in the tangible, in the flesh, Creative Inspiration Wednesday manifests like this. We all would gather in our space, and this is a human-centered design team that I led within a Fortune 5 organization a handful of years ago. And we look at what somebody brings in an inspiration capacity, and you could see someone showing some anime on a screen there. And again, just like with the new day one, we're not looking at something and being, oh, that was cool. We want to understand, why does this inspire the person? Why did they bring this in? How does this inform their creative process? And, we start out as a design team, and this was designers and front-end developers and writers and illustrators in this room. And somebody would walk by in the back behind that partition. You could see in the top of the image, and it would be another developer from a department, or it'd be a project manager. And first they would kind of peek their head by and wonder, like, what the hell are these people doing? And then, 2 weeks later, they would be a part of that meeting, or someone else would. And, what it does is it helps put our values out to the rest of the organization, and helps bring other people into these values in action. And we can understand them, and we can help empathize and be compassionate with them, and identify them as, actual human beings rather than a name on a spreadsheet or an email address. And people would bring in some fascinating things. For example, on the left side of the screen here, some patterns that someone had knit on the train between their commute from the far northern suburbs into downtown Chicago. Or the right side of the screen is something I brought in when I went to visit the Illinois Railway Museum, all the old trains in Southern Illinois one weekend. And I brought in these fantastic logos on the side of the trains, or the interesting color patterns. Or someone played some music. They brought in this old jazz band that I believe was associated with some Disney films at the time. And we listened to some tracks from the Firehouse 5+2. Or someone did some live mixing on a soundboard that we put on the screen. And I'm sure the rest of the organization appreciated hearing that first thing in the morning. But what this does, like I said, is this provides a well of inspiration that helps the quality of our work stay consistent. And I genuinely believe this. Fuel begets energy, and energy begets quality. So keeping that energy consistent week over week. And we can make sure, there are grander gestures with that inspiration as well. And like I said, I'm a big proponent of inspiration from the physical world, influencing our very digital product work. So one afternoon, I took my team and even some clients to this Truth Claim exhibit at the Carrie Sechrist Gallery in West Loop in Chicago. And the Truth Claim exhibit was designed around photographers deconstructing the very medium of photography in and of itself. How did they view their medium as creative individuals? How did they leverage it? How did they dissect what it meant to be a photographer? So we went to the gallery, and I talked to the gallery owner, who walked us around, kindly enough walked us around and talked through these spatial installations. And we got to get in depth with these pieces. And again, this is us connecting as creative individuals. This is us connecting as human beings, and bringing the tangible very much into the digital and back to our work. And again, we're not breaking the day at that point. And we go to the museum, and I say, okay, back to work, or okay, everyone have a nice day. We went to a cafe nearby, and like I said, coffee and coffee culture is very near and dear to me. And we talk about what we just saw, and we connect on what we just saw. And I ask, is this something you found valuable? Do you think I'm full of it doing something like this? And I genuinely relish and appreciate and grow from this kind of feedback. Is this something you found valuable? Was it a waste of time? Thankfully, it was more the former, but genuinely connecting on what we just did. And then the next creative inspiration, we come back to the table and we talk about how what we just saw the previous week at this gallery setting, how we can leverage it, how this can influence our work, how can we bring it back into our creative process and leverage what we had just seen. And you might notice what I have not mentioned over the past 50 or so slides, and that is tools. Digital tools with specificity. And that's because, my friend, the designer's legacy is not built upon their choice of tools. The designer's legacy is built upon the choices they make, as macro and micro as that implies. And what if we were able to create in a tool agnostic capacity, letting the means of creation be fluid to a given engagement, driving the best possible outcome in a very objective capacity. Letting AI be an arrow in our quiver rather than the archer themselves. Helping us defy the stagnation of the modern web and create experiences that are engaging, accessible, usable, and intuitive. Meaning we're not married to any given tool along the way. Shifting the procedural design narrative to more of this, designing in a medium agnostic capacity, which very much influences the way I create and my team creates at Anomaly by Design. We're not coming down there with the stone tablets and dropping them on the desk and chiseling in advance the exact means by which we're going to create, or the exact tools which we're going to use. Or we're not going to be locked into systems that initially seem like creative limiters rather than creative opportunity. And aside, I know this is not a design system, this is more a pattern library, but work with me. You see, design is solving the problem of engaging people anywhere, agnostic of the circumstance, to connect and convey an experience, be it a concert poster, be it an app icon, be it a website. And what is design, if not connection made manifest? And these challenges can start small, working in a medium agnostic capacity. Now, there was a tool in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s called ResEdit. And I'm going to date myself here, but when you used to turn on your Mac, these little extensions would kind of load at the bottom of the screen. And all these little extensions, their icons and the way they would create and work were built in this resource fork editing tool called ResEdit. You can see the binary code there, the ones and the zeros in the little window there. And ResEdit was, a clunky tool, but it was also massively robust in that it would, help program these resource forks within these extensions and other ways the Macintosh would work, which is very different to the way a Mac works today with modern OS updates. But one little thing it did, and you can see in that far right window there, is that it also would create icons, the actual icon that would show up for an application or for an extension. And this is what a user's desktop would look like around this era. You can see system 7.5.3 there for a Mac. And this is very neat and whirly. You can consider an actual more realistic example of iconic pandemonium from a user today or a user even back then. And desktop icons absolutely fascinated me. And I was an art student at the time at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago studying visual communication. And I found 32 by 32, 256 color pixel by pixel icons to be the absolute definition of visual communication. How could they maintain cohesion as part of a group? Or how could they stand apart amongst iconic pandemonium? And how can they maintain clarity of concept amongst this little 32 by 32 window? It was clarity of theme forced by ridiculous constraints. And sometimes ridiculous constraints afford the most pure concepts in a design capacity. And so I began to toil and figure out ways to push this medium on my Performa 6400 into the wee hours of the morning in my dorms. And myself and other icon artists and designers of the time, who were called iconists in a global community, would push ourselves and challenge one another's. And our work began to be published in various design publications and Mac customization magazines around the world. And it was a really cool thing as a young designer to be a part of. And I still find that today I go back to icon design. And these are more recent creations. And these are things, sometimes I share with people or the world, or sometimes I don't. Because if I'm stuck, or if I'm hitting that proverbial brick wall, or I need the fresh eyes, going back to creating under ridiculous constraints and challenging myself, I went to back to those values from earlier, helps align my creative mind, if you will, and settle myself. And having pushed myself and really achieve something objectively clean in a creative capacity in a design front, and conveying a concept and an idea, helps push me forward. And in a more practical sense, obviously ResEdit and pixel design is very, very niche. Working under constraints or a tool agnostic, creative agnostic capacity also has immense value. And I mentioned before, working within the confines of a Fortune 5 organization. I was a vice president of design at an organization called bswift, which is owned by CVS Health. And the design organization I led was aligned to our benefits administration tool, which kind of looked like this, or very much like this. And you could see what it would look like in a cell phone capacity, in a mobile viewport versus desktop. And there's a lot going on. When I joined the organization and I started rebuilding the team and design organization with specificity, the tool, the bswift tool, was about 10 years old at the point, maybe a little older. And it looked it. and there's a lot of information, and you would, log in to manage your benefits, and there would be organizational messages, or there'd be things vying you for your attention across life events, or it's time to enter open enrollment, or manage my profile. And so I wanted to redesign this process, this workflow, this product, which was a non-trivial feat, as you might imagine. And one of the core parts of the enrollment process was what we called the plan pod. And the plan pod would display all the given information across deductibles and your out-of-pocket costs, and if in or out of network, and what your copay might be, and who the provider might be, as you would select a health plan that you felt was best representative of your needs and of your family if you had dependents you wanted to add. So the first thing I wanted the team to focus on was this plan pod, rather than look at the juggernaut of the system proper. Look at something that was huge in terms of user need for the system, and would ultimately spoke outward and inform our design decisions for once we would engage with the product at large. And so first, my team began to catalog the plan pods. And it's not just to say there was one. I believe we found there were 54 different iterations of the plan pod across the benefits administration system. Like I said, the system was a decade plus old at this point, and different designers came in and different developers came in, and everyone had kind of their own take what a plan pod would look like. Is it vertical? Is it horizontal? Is it stacked? The call to action would kind of be in different spots or different colors. So we wanted to catalog every different instance and understand what had to be there versus what maybe we can remove in extraneous capacity. And, this was the core workflow of this product and system. So I flew everyone in an ownership capacity of this product across sales and PM and development and client relations. And I brought them in to run a workshop to understand what their needs are and what their perceived needs are for those we engage with. This was a B2B2C product. So the client would be the organization who would assign the checks. And of course, those would ultimately sign up for healthcare. And we went through and, the classic Post-it notes, my team documented and segmented out and bucketed different needs and themes. And moving on from there, we would start to talk to our users and generate personas, like I said, to give a soul to the process and understand potential pre-existing conditions and tech savvy and prescriptions and goals for the process and technical versus insurance knowledge, all generated from actual dialogues, nothing created siloed in a vacuum or prescriptively based on our team. And like I said, align that persona to a journey and build empathy across specific parts along the way, because we can't always assume every screen is going to be crystal clear. And, there might be too much information here and it might be confusing, or the user might be indifferent at a given point or find some points of engagement or experience more effective than others. And given all these learnings, given the documenting of the plan pods, given the workshop learnings and the aggregate of those learnings and the report back out, and given the persona development and given the journey map, once it came time for my designers to jump into the digital tools and create something happened. They hit the proverbial brick wall and they began to spin their wheels. And once they had jumped into their digital tools, ideas were locked in too quickly. And given the amount of copious information on display and things, we started to focus on things we didn't need to, like scales of typography or using specific fonts, or things that should not come into play at the rudimentary and low fidelity stages of design. And so I asked the team to go back to something else. No, not the cup of coffee, but to slow down and pause with intent and take the proverbial fresh eyes and go back to something else. Not their digital tools, but this specifically, the pencil and paper, which to me, and I've said this on many interviews and podcasts I've been in the past, and it's not to sound, like faux profound, but the pencil and paper to me is still the most essential tool in design. When ideas are meant to be rough at the rudimentary stages of design, the pencil and the eraser and a piece of paper is the most effective tool. And so our walls began to look more like this: sketches, copious sketches in a mobile first capacity to distill down what absolutely has to be there in a given screen or a given workflow, or what could be hidden, or what could be a just-in-time action display as a user needs to, the onus is on the user to display a given point of action. And not even write things down in some capacity, leverage different weights of lead to intimate hierarchy, or different scales of boxes, or use something else even tangibly. Some before we even got to pencil and paper, maybe it's different weights of fabric laid down on a table to intimate hierarchy. Really just stimulate creativity and inspiration in any way possible to drive the most objectively effective outcome. And eventually we got back to something like that manifested in this capacity: vertically stacked plan pods, very clear call to action, onus on the user to display information rather than just flooding everything all at once, clear information hierarchy, clear intuitive controls. So when we find ourselves hitting this proverbial brick wall, or in need of the proverbial fresh eyes, or if we find ourselves limited by systems that we feel are creative limiters, our design system to design to restrict freeform creativity? Absolutely, by design. But that doesn't mean the system itself can't be created to be as design effective and creative as humanly possible, while still maintaining cohesion across pages and experiences. Or does it mean that the modern web, given the modern viewport constraints, that we can go crazy with bandwidth hogging design? No, of course not. But we have progressive enhancement, so we can design small and scale up from viewport to desktop, providing a more robust and engaging experience as needed. And we're not going to hit someone with a 4K video on a low bandwidth connection. We can be bandwidth sensitive, and we can be accessibility minded in the DNA of the way we create, and go to something like this: visually engaging, typographically stunning, effective use of colors while still maintaining accessibility and connection, and leveraging all the research-based learnings up to this point. Driving connection with those we are creating for. And as I said at the beginning of this talk, I would come back to something related to my published works. If you are liking what I'm putting down here, I've written a few books on design. In Fulfillment, The Designer's Journey is my most recent book that is available at the URL and social handle you can see there. And my other book in 2 editions, the most recent edition called Creative Culture, at a more macro level, identifying the ways we can create most effectively and people first in an environment that respects us as individuals with unique voices. And if you want to stay in touch, I always prefer this as a dialogue over a monologue. Like I said, Anomaly by Design is my agency. You can find us here and reach out to me directly in this capacity. And thanks again, everybody. I know everyone's time is important. I appreciate you joining from. And thanks again, everybody, for joining me. I know your time is important and valuable. Thanks for joining the AIGA 2024 conference, and I hope you enjoyed this talk.